Hello, welcome back. We've been looking at the lives of the fathers of the faith, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob's name was changed to Israel, and Israel had 12 sons. The first 10 sons were born to 3 different women. The last 2 sons was born to a 4th woman, and this is the woman Jacob really, really loved deeply. The others he was kind of indifferent about. But this woman was amazing, but she died giving birth to that 12th son. So Joseph, son number 11, was by far the favorite, and Jacob went out of his way to let everybody know it. And this was not creating a nice, healthy family environment. The brothers, the 10 brothers, hated Joseph with a passion, and they ended up plotting to kill him, and instead ended up selling him as a slave to the Egyptians, knowing that he would most likely work the caves, and he'd probably be dead within a couple of years. So what they don't know is that even though Joseph did go to Egypt as a slave, he was bought as a slave by one of the most powerful people in Egypt. This was Potiphar. He was the captain of the bodyguard. He most likely would have known the Pharaoh, king of Egypt, fairly well, and he had a whole lot of power. And God blessed Joseph. The book of Genesis tells us God blessed Joseph there, and even though he's a slave, Potiphar really liked him and ended up setting him in a position of power where he is overseeing all the other slaves. And he ended up taking care of the whole household. Except, Potiphar himself was in charge. Joseph was like sort of the next in charge there. And Potiphar's wife kind of had a thing for Joseph. And she kept trying to seduce Joseph. And Joseph kept saying, look, your husband, remember him? Right? Your husband has given me command of everything that I want here, except you. I'm not going to do this to him, right? So, don't be offended. It's not you, it's me, one of those things. But I'm not going to do it. Potiphar's wife kept trying and trying and trying to seduce him. So one day, she had him alone in the house. The few people left in the house at the time, she found reasons to send them away out of the house. It was just her and Joseph. And she starts putting on her moves, really trying hard to get him to sleep with her. And he just kept refusing. So she finally grabs his cloak, his outer garment, grabs this and says, "Sleep with me." And Joseph just takes off running. Cloak is still in her hands. He's running, and he's in, I don't actually know what he would have been wearing. Not much. And she is completely, she can't get caught like this. I mean, she's in a predicament now. If she doesn't do something, people are going to realize what's going on. So she screams bloody murder, calls for help. People come running from all over the place. Potiphar's wife is in trouble. What is it? Well, here she is holding Joseph's cloak, and she says, "That Hebrew slave tried to rape me." Right? I screamed and he ran off, but I was able to keep his cloak. He's framed for rape. Right? If things weren't hard enough already, here we go. Well, if you are the captain of the bodyguard in Egypt, you're a high-ranking official in Egypt, you have a lot of power, and a Hebrew slave tries to rape your wife, what do? Right? Joseph is going to be killed for this, absolutely. There's just no question. Potiphar throws him in prison. Right? Why? Why would Potiphar throw him in prison? Well, I suspect Potiphar suspected his wife. Right? I don't think Potiphar trusted his wife. I think Potiphar knew exactly what was happening and really doubted that Joseph would do anything like that, but didn't doubt so much that his wife would do something like that. But if he does nothing, that sends a message to the whole, everybody in that part of the world. Potiphar can't control his wife. Potiphar's wife was trying to be unfaithful to him. Well, he can't let that happen either, because that would bring great shame on him. He would lose his status in Egypt. It would be absolutely horrible. he doesn't want to kill Joseph for something he didn't do, so he spares Joseph's life, but spares his own rank as well, and sends Joseph to prison instead of having him executed. And in prison, somehow the Lord starts blessing him again, and he ends up being trusted by the guards to oversee a lot of the stuff going on in the prison. And at some point, Pharaoh himself he catches somebody trying to kill him, and he has two suspects. He throws them both in prison. Each of these men have dreams. Joseph interprets the dreams, and for one, he says, you're going to be restored to your position, things are going to go really well for you, etc. And the other says, oh, my turn, interpret my dream. And Joseph says, sorry, dude, it's not going to go that well for you. You're going to be found guilty, and by this time tomorrow, you're dead. And it's exactly the way it played out. And Joseph pleaded with that first guy, please remember me. Right? When you go back to Pharaoh, please remember me. The guy, of course, forgets about Joseph. He's just some Hebrew prisoner. And Egyptians hated Hebrew people. More on that another time. But they hated Hebrew people. So this guy just forgot about Joseph. Well, some time goes by, and Pharaoh himself now has a dream. And he knows this is no ordinary dream. This means something. This is a significant crisis that he's going to be facing, and he doesn't understand it. And he calls all his wise men, these people who, they'd be doing things that a lot of Christians would call occult practices. One of their jobs, among other things, they were like astrologers and that sort of thing. One of their jobs was to interpret dreams. And the Bible says that none of them could interpret this dream. Now, personally, I know nothing about dream interpretation, but the dream Pharaoh had is not that hard to interpret. It's things will, there were 7 things, stalks of grain, and then it was animals, another dream. They're thriving, they're doing really well, and then all of a sudden they're shriveling up and dying for, 7 of them, and nobody can interpret this dream. Well, why? Right? It's not so much that nobody was able to, it's that nobody was willing to. And this is an important concept and will continue to be important later on. Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, was considered to be a divine being. Right? He's a divine leader, divinely appointed. He is thought of as a god himself. To tell this God, this divine being, that there are 7 years of plenty coming is a great thing. It's great news. But then to say, following that, there will be 7 years of utter famine, and you can't do a thing about it, is to challenge his divinity. And none of the people that worked for Pharaoh wanted to tell Pharaoh this, because that wouldn't go over. That message just wouldn't go over well. You're powerless to control any of this. Well, this guy who met Joseph in prison, Joseph interpreted his dream. He remembered, remember that guy who interpreted my dream? I bet he could do it. And what's a Hebrew slave have to worry about? His status isn't going to get too much worse if he tells Pharaoh what's going to happen. So they call him out of prison. Joseph comes from prison. They dress him all up like an Egyptian. They make sure he's all cleaned. He's taken a bath. He's shaven. The Hebrew people in general would have hair all over their bodies, really long hair. They'd have big, long beards. And that was just appalling to Egyptians for several reasons. Egyptians would be completely shaved, no hair on their heads, no hair anywhere on their bodies, bathing every day. The Hebrews, they were shepherds. They didn't have to bathe every day. They're just going to go out and follow the sheep around again. What do they care? And here he is in prison. I'm sure he didn't shower every day. So they get him all dressed up nice. They bathe him. They give him Egyptian clothes. He's been in prison with Egyptians for years, and he's learned the language. He's becoming pretty fluent in the Egyptian language. So he appears to Pharaoh now. Pharaoh knows he's a Hebrew slave, but is willing to listen. And he tells the dream to Joseph, and Joseph says, "Oh, Pharaoh, here's what the dream means. There will be 7 years of abundance," and he elaborates on that a little bit. "And then there will be 7 years of great famine." But Joseph doesn't stop there. And this is where all the other magicians and wise men of Pharaoh blew it. Right? Pharaoh asked for the interpretation of the dream. Joseph has just given him the interpretation of the dream, but he keeps going. And he says, Pharaoh, here is how you need to respond to this dream. There will be 7 years of abundance. Take advantage of that. During the time of abundance, tax the people, collect their grain, make them give you any grain, anything that they don't need. Right then and there, you take it and you store it. For 7 years, you do this. And then when the famine hits, you will have all this grain set up. So appoint somebody who you trust to get this grain from your people, to follow through with this tax, and then to distribute the grain wisely after all this, the famine hits and the years of flourishing are gone. And Pharaoh says, your God, and Joseph made it clear, this was my God helping me here. Pharaoh says, if your God can help you interpret that dream and give such wise counsel, you have the job. So Pharaoh establishes that Joseph will now be second in power over all of Egypt. There's Pharaoh, king of Egypt, then there's Joseph, and then everybody else. So Joseph just moves from being sold to an almost certain death, to being a slave, to being a prisoner, to being second in command over all Egypt. And sure enough, there are 7 years of abundance. And I'm sure that Joseph was not the people's favorite person, because he was the one responsible for collecting all that grain. They do all the hard work, Joseph takes it from him. But after those 7 years, there are 7 years of famine. The people have a little bit of grain left, but they use it up pretty quickly, and the famine doesn't stop. And Joseph makes this announcement, I have grain. You can come to me and buy some of this grain back. Well, first glance, you'd think they have to buy their own grain back. What's with that? They're going to be really upset. But the alternative is you die. So on one hand, they're thankful to have grain at all, right? Second, if Joseph did not make them buy their grain back, and he said, how many in your family, right? I'd say 40, right? Get as much grain as I can possibly get and go back. If I have to pay for it, I'm only going to buy back what I actually need, which means the grain lasts longer. And Pharaoh is getting more money. He's getting more income. So in a sense, they all win. Well, eventually they run out of money, and they start selling back their property. And after that, the famine continues, and their property is all sold. They basically sell themselves as slaves to Pharaoh. Not that everybody gives up their house and becomes a slave in Pharaoh's castle or anything like that, but they're basically indebted to Pharaoh, is the idea. Pharaoh is now completely in control of everything that happens and everybody in Egypt. So Pharaoh's happy. The people are still alive and they still have food, and they end up thankful to Joseph for letting them live, because 7 years of famine in that society is an awful long famine, and a lot of people would die. If it wasn't for Joseph and doing these things, a lot of people would be dying. So they're thankful for Joseph. So Joseph has their respect. He has Pharaoh's respect. He's in power. The people are thankful. Pharaoh is extremely glad because he's like the most powerful ruler now. And it sort of works out for everybody. Meanwhile, the famine is continuing, and people all around that whole region are suffering, including the land of Canaan. And who is in the land of Canaan? Joseph's father and brothers. So they're all sitting around. They have no crops to pull in. They're starving to death. Jacob finally says to the brothers, hey, what are you sitting around looking at yourselves for? Just stop staring at each other. I hear there's grain down in Egypt. Go buy some grain. So they go, and of course 10 of them go. Joseph, as far as they know, is dead. And then Benjamin is the only other son of Rachel, the love of Jacob's life. He's not letting him out of the house. So the 10 brothers, they go to Egypt to buy grain. Time has gone by. Quite a bit of time has gone by here. Joseph has become very fluent in the Egyptian language. He's established as second in command. He's going to be dressed in the nicest Egyptian clothing. his appearance has changed a bit because he's grown up a bit more. The brothers' appearance, they were already in their 20s and 30s. Their appearance won't change that much. They've had big hair, big, long, bushy beards. They're dressed like Hebrews. Joseph sees 10 Hebrews who look just the way he remembers their brothers looking, walking into the palace. They think he's dead. It never even crosses their mind. Could this high-ranking Egyptian official maybe be our brother? No, I doubt it. It never even crosses their mind. He looks different. His head is shaved. He's wearing different clothing. He's speaking the Egyptian language. There's almost nothing about him that they would remember. But he recognizes them instantly. And he sees 10 of them. He's number 11. Where is number 12? Where is my blood brother? Right? So now everything is rushing back. He's remembering the pain of them doing this to him, trying to kill him, selling him into slavery. The pain that he experienced, all the suffering that they caused him comes flooding back. And there's no Benjamin. His blood brother is not there. Did they do the same to him? Maybe they killed him. Maybe they sold him as a slave and he didn't make it. He got trapped in the caves, and maybe he's there. All this is going through Joseph's head. And Joseph is a mess, right? He composes himself and plays it up a little bit. He starts drilling them with questions. Where have you come from? How many of you are there? Just on and on, all these different questions. And he accuses them of being spies. And this is kind of off the cuff, right? He needs to come up with something quick. It's all off the cuff. The brothers, meanwhile, the 10 of them, are saying, spies? We're a bunch of Hebrews. We're keeping sheep, right? That's what we do for a living. What do you mean we're spies? Joseph says, no, you're spies. I know it. You're trying to find our weak points. You're coming out here to inspect and find out where our weaknesses are, and you're going to attack. And they keep saying, that's ridiculous. No. Well, Joseph says, tell me more about yourselves then. Prove it. Is it just the 10 of you, or are there other brothers and family? And they say, well, our father is still alive, and yes, we have one more brother who didn't come with us. And that's what Joseph needed to know. My brother Benjamin is still alive. Next step then is protect Benjamin. Benjamin's not there with them, with the brothers, but he's alive, which means the father kept him home. The father is favoring him the way he favored Joseph, and he's in danger. I need to rescue my brother Benjamin from these 10, and I need to find a way to do it. So he says this, he says, you can have your grain, I'll let you buy your grain, but one of you stays here as a hostage. If you come back here again, you will bring that last brother that you speak of. Because if there is no brother and you're not telling the truth, that's how I'll know. And you won't get any grain, you'll get nothing. I'll know that you're spies. And I have this other one, it turned out to be Simeon, in custody. And for his sake, you better be telling the truth. So this way, Joseph knows they'll run out of grain sooner or later. They're going to want to come back and rescue Simeon. And they won't be able to return without bringing Benjamin. That'll keep Benjamin safe until they run out of grain. And it'll get them to bring Benjamin right to Joseph. And Joseph can kind of save him from their hands. It's some pretty smart thinking right off the cuff like this. So the brothers go back, and everything's okay for a little while. They have grain. When they get back, they open up their bags to get the grain and everything. They find the money that they gave to Joseph back in their bags. Joseph had somebody put the money back. Now they're panicked, because now, in their minds, this person, the man, the second in command in Egypt, we paid him, but he didn't get our money. Now if we go back, he's going to think we're thieves in addition to spies. This is really bad. Well, they run out of grain. They're starving to death. Jacob will not let Benjamin go. He absolutely refuses. Until finally the brothers convince Jacob, look, We're sitting here with no food day after day after day. You can either let us protect Benjamin and we will bring him back safely to you with grain, or we're all going to die. Right? If you're worried about Joseph dying on this journey, you can either sit here and watch him starve to death, or you can take a risk and let us all go back and get grain. So finally, Jacob relents. He sends Benjamin with the other brothers. So again, 10 of them show up. This time it's Benjamin with them, and Simeon is still in the Egyptian prison. Joseph, again, recognizes them right away. They approach and they say, they're playing it up, buttering him up, and, I don't know how this happened, but our money sacks got put back in our bags. I swear we didn't mean to steal the grain, but here, take this and double, and we'll pay for more grain now. And Joseph looks at them and says, I don't know what you're talking about. I got your money. You're fine. You're good. And then he throws a big feast. And the brothers are all confused. Like, last time he was accusing us of being spies. This time he throws us a feast? What Egyptian would throw a big feast for a bunch of Hebrews? Doesn't make sense. What's going on? And they'd be sitting around the table at this feast, probably in birth order, which means Benjamin would be the last to get food. And Joseph gave some special instructions to the servants. The servants would go, and starting with Reuben, the firstborn, potatoes, and then Simeon, he's in jail. Levi, I think they actually pulled Simeon out of jail, if I remember. And just down the line. Then they get all the way to Benjamin. It's potatoes. Right, just Benjamin's plate was just, piled up with food. And all the brothers are looking, saying, what in the world is this about? None of this makes any sense. And then Joseph wishes them all farewell. They're on their way, and as they're going down the main stretch there, a bunch of black limousines pull up, and guys in dark suits and dark sunglasses step out with guns in their hands, and they pull up and they say, you thought you can get away with this? They're saying, what now? What happened now? Didn't you know that our master who gave you all that grain, didn't you know that he's divine? He knows what's going on around him. You stole his divination cup. And they all looked at each other in a panic, and they're like, nobody stole anything. And if you need to search. None of us did it. And they say, and, whoever did this, you're going to be in big trouble. And they said, well, okay, but none of us did it. So they started with the oldest, Reuben, searched all his stuff, nothing. Then Simeon, then Levi, all the way down to Benjamin. They open up Benjamin's bag, and there is this divination cup. They pull out the cup and hold it up and say, and what is this? All of the brothers, their eyes get this big. They're in a panic. Benjamin doesn't know what's going on. He obviously didn't take it. It was planted there. They all know it was planted, but you can't prove anything. And the people, they take Benjamin, they arrest him, they put him in the back of one of those big black limos, and send all the other brothers home. What Joseph didn't expect was that the brothers didn't go home. They followed Benjamin with all these security people back to the palace. And they come in knowing Benjamin is facing a death sentence for stealing from this man. The second in command in Egypt, you don't do that to him. He's going to be killed. So the brothers are pleading, we don't know how this happened, but please don't do this to us. And Joseph says, nope, he's caught red-handed, go home. Right, well, Joseph's plan all along was to take Benjamin back. He would reveal himself to Benjamin, they would be okay, and he's safe from the brothers. But the brothers persist. Please don't do this. Our father will go to the grave in agony if we don't return with Benjamin. And that resonates with Joseph. And finally, one of them steps forward and says, I know, listen, please listen to me. I know that he was caught. I know Benjamin, our brother, was caught with your cup. I can't deny that he was caught with it. I don't know how it happened, but I can't deny it. But please, our father is old. he saw one of his sons, his favorite son, killed. He can't go through that again. I know he's guilty, but please let him go and take me in his place. I can't bear seeing my father go to the grave in agony like this, so please take me instead of him. And at that point, Joseph breaks down crying. He just can't handle it anymore. And he says, finally, guys, I am Joseph, your brother. And there's that long, awkward pause. And all the brothers look at Joseph and they stare at him. And they finally start to see the resemblance in the eyes, the nose, the facial features. And he says, what you meant for harm, God has used for good. Don't be afraid. I'm not going to take vengeance on you. I'm not out to get you. And they talk. There's some reconciliation there. And he says, please go get our father. Bring him here. You can live here and have the best of everything. And that ends up being what happens. The brothers go back. They get Jacob. They get the rest of the family, the extended family. They bring them all to Egypt. Joseph appoints a really good piece of land for them in Egypt. And the people are living there. The whole family is living there. There's a lot of reconciliation going on. Toward the end of Jacob's life, he's going to give some blessings. Right? First of all, Jacob has always favored Joseph. Joseph, in his mind, was dead. Years went by and he was grieving the loss of Joseph. And now here he is reunited with Joseph, alive and running Egypt. And how amazing would that be? And Jacob, the deceiver, wants to give Joseph a special, special blessing. But he really can't. Joseph is number 11 of 12 children. The blessing would go to Reuben. Right? Reuben is the firstborn. He's the legitimate heir. He has the legitimate right to the double blessing, the double inheritance, and the special family blessing, all these things. So he's got to scheme a little bit. So that schemer, Jacob, he does something that's really pretty ingenious, if you ask me. He takes Joseph aside. Before he gives his final blessing to the whole family, all the children, he takes Joseph aside. Joseph has two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. And he takes these sons and says, bring them over here. Well, when he does this, he's getting old, right? Jacob's getting old. He can't see too well. And he has Joseph bring the sons over. And you would, for the firstborn son, you would put out your right hand and lay your right hand on the firstborn son's head and then give a blessing. Well, there are two. So he would put his right hand on the firstborn, left hand on the next one, the second one. Well, here Jacob, he goes to bless Joseph's two sons and crosses his arms. Right? Very significant move. Jacob was the younger one who got the blessing. He is passing on that same blessing to these two children, crossing his arms, so the younger gets the blessing of the firstborn. Joseph doesn't like that and corrects him. Jacob says, quiet, I know what I'm doing. And Joseph gives these two children this great blessing. When he's doing that, what he actually does is adopt those two children as his own children. Joseph is his son. Now, I'm not clear yet whether these two sons of Joseph take Joseph's place. They both are now adopted as Jacob's children. I don't know if it's them carrying on Joseph's identity or whether it's Joseph and the two. Either way, what he does is ingenious, because now when he splits up this inheritance, his inheritance will get split among all of his sons, including Ephraim and Manasseh, which means that Joseph and his family line, Ephraim and Manasseh, get either 2 or 3 portions of the inheritance instead of just the one that would go to Joseph. Extremely, manipulative and crooked, but brilliant move. And then finally he calls all the sons together, and he's going to give them his final blessing. And he says, assemble yourselves that I may tell you what will befall you in the days to come. So this is not just an ordinary blessing on the children. This is actually a prophetic blessing that will shape their future. And they all come together, and he starts with Reuben, of course, the firstborn. And he says, Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might in the beginning of my strength, preeminent in dignity and preeminent in power. And Reuben sits up. Yes, I am the firstborn. Lay it on me, Dad. Give me that double portion. Give me the double inheritance. And Jacob continues, uncontrolled as water, you shall not have preeminence because you went up to your father's bed and defiled it. And if you remember, Reuben slept with Jacob, one of Jacob's concubines. He kind of turns as an aside, saying, he went up to my couch. Can you believe he did that? You get nothing, Reuben. The right of the firstborn has just passed Reuben. Now, who will it go to? Well, obviously Simeon. And Simeon gets excited. He's like, wow, we're not even splitting the inheritance as many directions as I thought, and I'm going to get the double portion. This is great. Well, Jacob continues, Simeon, and Simeon sits up, and Jacob says, and Levi sits up happy, and Simeon looks over a little confused. And Jacob says, their swords are implements of violence. Let my soul not enter into their counsel. Let not my glory be united with their assembly, because in their anger they slew men. In their self-will they lamed oxen. Cursed be their anger, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I will disperse them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. No inheritance for them either. Well, next comes Jacob. Next comes Judah. All these J names get my brain confused. Next comes Judah. Remember, Judah, he was the one who said, let's not kill Joseph. Let's get something from the deal. Let's sell him as a slave so we can get some money. Right? He'll still die, but at least we'll get something for him. And then he left the family, bringing shame on the family. And while he was there, he slept with what he thought was a temple prostitute and ended up being the wife of his sons. Right? He basically slept with the woman, pledged to be married to his son, and had twins by her. Right? If Reuben didn't get the inheritance, Simeon and Levi didn't get the inheritance, Judah, he's a mess. And he's got to be a little concerned. If I were Judah, I don't think I'd be thrilled. Hey, it's my turn. Right? Maybe I get the double portion. I'd be cowering. Well, here Jacob continues. Judah, your brothers shall praise you. Your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons shall bow down to you. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. He couches, he lies down as a lion, and as a lion, who dares rouse him up? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until Shiloh comes, and to him shall be the obedience of the peoples. And he goes on a little bit more, but Judah has to be utterly shocked. Why would you give me this incredible blessing after all I've done? Especially this piece, the scepter shall not depart from Judah. Who owns a scepter but a king? The scepter shall not depart from Judah. Judah's family will rule as kings. The ruler's staff shall not depart from between Judah's feet until Shiloh comes. Now, there's a little debate about what the word Shiloh means, but the essence, from what I understand, is Shiloh basically means the one to whom something belongs. Something belongs to something, and Shiloh would be the title of that person. The scepter, the kingdom, shall not depart from Judah until Shiloh comes. Until the one comes to whom the kingdom belongs. And who would that be? First, it would be King David, way down the line. And then way down the line from there, it would be Jesus himself. Why this blessing for Judah? Judah did horrible things. But Judah is also the one who confronted Joseph without knowing who Joseph was and said, I know my brother, that one over there, is guilty, but take me as an innocent substitute. I have not been caught for that crime, but I want to pay the punishment for that crime in his place so that he can go home to his father. And that's exactly what Jesus did for us. Judah lived out the very gospel. And because he did that, he was given this incredible blessing where it was promised that the kingdom itself would be part of Judah. Shortly after this blessing, Judah went on to bless the other brothers. But shortly after this, Jacob, there's that J name thing again. Shortly after this, Jacob dies. The brothers and their families are all living in Egypt, and things go really well for them in Egypt. They're being blessed. They're in some of the best land. And then some time goes by, and another person becomes Pharaoh who doesn't know them or care about them. They end up enslaved, and that's where we'll pick up next time. We'll start the book of Exodus.